Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you back to the second of our Transformational Leadership interview series. Today, we're going to be speaking with Mr. Leopold Steely Williams. In his autobiography, Leopold Steely Williams chronicles his extraordinary rise from the ashes of poverty to the pinnacles of success in the life insurance industry. Nicknamed Steely for his grit and determination, the author shares his story in the hope that it will inspire you to dream and to dream big. Leopold Steely Williams celebrated 40 years in the life insurance industry. He has established himself as one of the most prolific salesmen and managers in the 3 companies he represented throughout his career. He is also a successful businessman, mentor, humanitarian, and founder of the Steely Williams Foundation to help disadvantaged children complete their education.
He said the wrong thing to me because I'm that type of person. If you tell me that I can't do anything, then that is what is going to motivate me because I'm going to do the wrong.
Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the second in our series of Transformational Leadership Conversations. This morning I'm speaking with Mr. Leopold Steely Williams. He's the author of Steely, Determined to Win. There is much more about Mr. Williams that you will learn this morning as we go through this series of questions. We're looking at this conversation in 7 segments. In segment 1, we're looking at the introduction. He will provide a synopsis of his childhood and professional life. In segment 2, we're looking at challenges faced and overcome. In segment 3, we're looking at mentorship. In segment 4, we're looking at his path to success. Segment 5, executive coaching, metrics, and mentorship. Segment 6, his leadership style. And segment 7 will be a summary of the conversation. Good morning, Mr. Williams.
Morning.
How are you today?
Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure. Thank you for accommodating us this morning. Mr. Williams, please provide us with a summary of your life from boyhood throughout your professional life to where you are today.
Well, I grew up in a little district up in Brownstown. And Brownstown was then known as a busy little town. I grew up east of about a mile out of Brownstown, a little district they called it at the time. It was actually a district that came out of the slave plantocracy at Kadiapon Lake on the other side. Now it was a little district where most of the people were farmers. Around us, the Minard Hill, which was the Beverly Hill of Brownstown, and to the east there was Aberdeen. There were 2 influential communities that surround us, but a lot of influential people didn't come from where I come from. So it was a poor district, and everybody, I didn't realize that even that we were better off than many of the people around, even though we were poor. But I grew up with my mother and my father. We had a very large family. That my father had 4 children outside. My mother had 1, and then there were 7 of us living in the house. And fortunate for us, we didn't have to pay rent, as my father had secured a 3-bedroom house. But the truth is, that was it. There was not a lot of things to go around for 7 of us. My father decided that my mother shouldn't work, even though my mother had even though she dropped out of school, she had to leave school early, she had a certain level of education. Because looking back on her writings today, I realized if she had gone through school, she would have been a very bright lady. She was a beautiful lady, and I see my father was very handsome, and I could see why some of the ladies, he had so many kids outside, because yes. And but once he got married and he settled down, I never hear of any incident here. My mother was a Christian. He wasn't a Christian, but he supported my mother. When he got a vehicle later on in his life, he dropped out to church at the morning. And he couldn't say that we were going to church. Right? I later on in life, we realized how strict he was. And some of his principles I keep up to today because So we went to the primary school, which is a famous school by now, Park School, which has the father of the now vice president candidate attended that school in Downtown. Yes. It was a school everybody went to Park School. We have some very distinguished people coming.
That's the vice president candidate of the United States of America,
Kamala Harris. We noticed that her father originated from Orange, which is a district near today. That's where my father originated from, Orange. So yes, I was a very bright student, but then in the 1960s, just around independence, after we lost the school, primary school went down in fire. And that disrupted my education because we moved into 3 different places for the year. Couldn't find a abiding place. And then I failed the common entrance, which in those days, if you fail the common entrance, then the path would be very rough because that was a ticket to get out. So I didn't pass the common entrance. I went on to the secondary school at the time. And I got a good education, but then I got a technical scholarship. Didn't get, as I said, the common end. I got a technical scholarship, but then my father was in a bad financial condition because he had just bought a whole vehicle that sucked up all his money. So I couldn't get to go on to further education. So I decided that I'll take a job in a printry where I could go back to a Yorkshire extension class. I would go back for 2 years to study. And that was where I ended my education. Right? Because I tried to get into the teaching. All of us was trying to be teachers. But then I failed English language. I passed the other subject, but I failed English language. I couldn't get into college. I get frustrated. It was very frustrating. So it was one disappointment. Just after that, I met a gentleman who was impressed with me. We had an argument. Didn't know he was a big official at Kaiser Boxside. Everybody was running to, people were coming from all over Jamaica. So he decided that they wanted some 7 people to recruit to go to Kaiser to train as electrical people. And I was selected. I did the interview, came first in the interview. But when I was called to take up the job, disappointment again, and that's a mystery illness coming from me. I don't know what it was. And for almost a year I was out of commission. And that spoiled it because everybody those days was running. Kaiser was a high-speed company in Jamaica at the time. And people were coming from all over Jamaica to work at Kaiser because of benefits and everything. So that was another thing. Shortly after that, I was recruited. Gentleman who was the manager at the print shop came to my house and recruited me. So I worked in the print shop for 2 years. And I did such a good job that I remember I had to tell the gentleman, I tried to lie to the gentleman to leave. He didn't want me to leave because he think I was doing a fine job. Right. So that was the early part of my life, full of disappointment. Didn't get to get where I wanted to go. So I was very frustrated during that period because having all the desire to go to the top, and I know that education is one of those. When you're poor, that is one of the opportunities you have to use to get out of your poverty.
Awesome. Thank you for that overview. Then came insurance, and we're going to be talking about that shortly. Thank you so much. So the lesson there, Mr. Williams, for persons who may have failed, is that once you fail, get up.
Yes. You don't have to, your failure is an event.
Yes.
You don't have to continue talking about past and gone. Yeah, you can pick up from there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. Please highlight a few of the major academic, social, professional, or other challenges you faced in life, which could have derailed your success. How were you able to overcome those challenges?
In 1973, I was at I just accepted the Lord as my Savior. Become a Christian in 1973. I got my driver's license, which was achievement in those days because nobody persons my age didn't have a driver's license. And I was coming downstairs from church. The gentleman was an organist. Called me and said, I want to speak to you. So I was wondering what he wanted to say. Then he said, I know he was in the insurance business. And then he said that, but he was managing another organization and he was doing it part-time. So he said that the company, I'm leaving the company, and they asked me to get somebody to replace me. I said, me? Insurance? I said, no, because I have some idea. I used to see insurance people come around town, and I realized the type of people were insurance. Very slick and dressed and, driving some of the better brands of cars. So I look at it and I said, boy, I don't fit that profile. Mm-hmm. But somehow he saw something that I didn't see. And he insisted, because he said I'm the right type of person and he's going to recommend me. So I just said that when he get back, I just, put him out. So I was over Yorkshire playing field, where I used to play cricket and football in the evening. And I saw a beautiful car, sport car, coming down and everything. And then somebody came to me and said, somebody wanted to see her. I said, who is this coming to see me? I saw a naturally dressed young man step out of the car along with my church brother. And he said, and the truth is, when I saw the car, anybody would know me that I'm a motor vehicle fanatic. And that's why my hobby is collecting motor cars. I collect Mercedes Benz. That's my hobby. And I said, boy, if this is the type of car that these guys want to be a part of it, because yes, they must be earning some money. Yeah. So I didn't reject. So he told me that I should come to OTRS for the interview. Got to the interview. I was trained in 1st of April 1974. I decided. I was nervous. I remember the first person I called on, right? I was praying to God that the person didn't come out because I was shaking like a leaf, right? But the person came out and I made the sale. And that was the thing. I said, you can do it, right? I said, you can do it. So 1st of April 1974, I set out on the career path. And just in the space of a year, everybody in the company, because there were 18 companies, it was British Fidelity Insurance Company. They have 18 territories which they operate in. In 1976, I was the second agent in the whole Caribbean, run-up agent in the whole Caribbean. This was my first opportunity in Grenada playing. I went up to Puerto Rico. They invited me up, and they gave me, even the tips I give, they paid for it. And they had a banquet up in Caribbean, Hilton, in Puerto Rico. Big function. And I was very pleased. I said, well, this is it. Yeah. It was a good experience. But it was trouble after that, because after 1976, I realized that I started to have some problems because the company was pushing me, but the manager couldn't deal with it. So he was undermined. I remember the company wanted to buy me a brand new Rover. Never forget the company, because they see me as a future manager and so the company, so they didn't want me to leave. But the manager and the assistant manager was not going to it because they didn't get that opportunity and no one did. So I just resigned and left. So I decided that I was finished with the life insurance business. But in 1977, again, I was at my church, and then Tony Williams, who was a well-known figure in the life insurance business, came to my church to speak. It was a time in Jamaica when there was a charismatic individual, and he was one of the architects, one of the founders, and he came to our church to share his experience. And while it was my good friend who was the manager at Nature Life, Reverend Desmond Smith now. He came and said to me that you cannot leave the business because, you did a wonderful job while you were there, and you shouldn't leave the business. And he took me down to his house to sit the ordinary long term and said that I should come back in the business. But by this time, his company didn't feel I fit the profile for his company, so they turned me down. Right, so I said, no, that was it. I wanted to go back to school to complete my study, but then I didn't have the money. So when I met Tony Williams and he said he was looking, he was with Confederation Life, a company that was owned by Grace Kennedy, right? We had the thing for it. And I went to, he said that he wanted somebody to represent the company in the center. And so Mr. Smith just turned to him and said, here's the man. And that was it. Yes, he gave me his card and said, I must come to New Kingston to see him. The truth is, I was happy that I was going to Kingston because I want to go back to study, and that was my opportunity to earn some money and go back to school. Because those days we didn't have no community college or anything. Only like now, the kids are privileged to have come back in the backyard. We didn't have that. So I wanted to go back to Kingston to complete my heritage work. But in 1977, when I reached Kingston, and I got the interview. As a matter of fact, before the interview, when he took up the recommendation and seat, he didn't bother to conduct the interview. He just said that he called one of his assistants and said, show me all of the rates and everything. He didn't complete that, which he said in an article he wrote later on in the video, that he just realized that there was a fire burning in me and he wanted to experience it.
Opportunity in the midst of challenges. So
when I came in 1977, or middle of 1970, some of the guys the truth is I didn't even know Kingston. Because I had a little cold car which nearly I had to throw water in it about 10 times before I reached to Kingston. Because those days cars didn't come by easy. And I remember Mother in the morning gave me the money to buy gas because I didn't have money to put gas in here to go to Kingston. So when I reached, they told me that when I reached Kingston I should go down on Spanish Town, go up Hagley Park Road, turn at JBC at South Road Avenue, go down halfway through. But I lost about 15 times in the morning before I reached because I didn't know where I was going. But the strangest thing, I drove up on Holborn Road and go across. I was going on Dumfries Road. Then I realized that I reached because when I reached, there were Audis, Benz, a pure big car. So I realized I reached where the insurance man was staying. Right? So I parked my little old car way down the road because I didn't want anybody to see what I was driving. Right? And when I reached in there were some big guys, these guys, because Tony Williams was known to recruit the best, some of the best people in the industry. Right? Because those days they didn't have a lot of graduates going into insurance, but some of those guys were engineers already, and those are the people who was recruiting in the branch. So when I was introduced in morning in the branch, they laugh at me. They say, this is a country boy, you can't make it in this thing. This big man thing, this, guys. I didn't say anything because I knew I was going to make a change of tune shortly. And in just 3 months of the year, I've sold more business than what the top agent in the brand said. And everybody was on my side. Everybody was fine. So that was my experience.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. And persons who are interested in hearing some more of this captivating story can purchase the book, Steely, Determined to Win. Amazing. When I started reading this book, I was unable to put it down. Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. We're going into segment 3, and this takes us nicely as you talk about Tony Williams into mentorship. Many leaders have identified persons who have mentored them directly or indirectly throughout their career. Can you identify anyone who contributed significantly to your success or influenced you to strive for excellence? How did they influence you?
There were two. As I mentioned before, Desmond Smith was the manager at Leopold Life. He was the person who told me that I can be. I am grateful for that because I didn't want to go back after my experience, but he was the person who insisted that I go back. He was the person who introduced me to Tony Williams. Right? So he was the person responsible for my coming back in the business. And Tony Williamson was the person who was responsible for taking me to the other level. In the 70s, 80s, and everybody would know Tony Williams. That was it, only that he was a prolific motivator and speaker. He actually was one of the first, only black man to address it at that time, to address the $1 million wanted from Jamaica. The first person in Jamaica to have taken the main platform speaker on the real body. He was an outstanding insurance motivator manager. So he was the person who introduced, take me to the other level. He knew that I love Mercedes Benz, and he took me down to Sabina Park. Never forget it. He was chauffeur driven, and he took me down into his big Mercedes Benz, and he took me down to Sabina Park, the Kingston Cricket Club, and he made me feel very comfortable. And when he was coming back, I was sitting in the back of the car. We both were sitting with his chauffeur, and I said, "Boy, this is it." Yeah, he took me up to Beverly Hills and told me that any one of these houses I want, you can get it. And I said, "Really?" He said, "You can get it." And he set out in January 1978. Life of Jamaica bought out the company after 6 months of spend. And I was very happy because I have heard of this great pioneer, Honorable Daniel Williams, who was the founder of Life of Jamaica, and I really wanted to join that company. So this was the opportunity. So on the 1st of January 19, I joined Life of Jamaica. Usually Tony Williams and Leopold every year would meet at a hotel, and you would have to verbalize what you want to do for the year. Yes. I think he did it because he wanted to set you up, because everybody would hear what each, and people would laugh after you. Everybody got up and say what they want to achieve for the year. It was my turn. So I got up and I said, 1978, I said, this year I want to buy a house by the sea. Yes. I want to buy a Mercedes Benz, and I'm planning to retire at age 45. That was the 3 goals I set.
How did they respond?
And the guys, for the whole month, I was a laughing stock. I was a laughing stock in the branch. Yes. The guys jeered me and said, "This is a country boy, I think that's how this thing goes." Yeah, but they didn't know that they determined it. So in 1978, I did extremely well. I was the top agent in the branch. I sweep all of the awards in the branch, all the major awards. And by 1979, I bought a villa, right, which my daughters live. I gave it to my daughter today, and I'm happy because that was my first piece of real estate investment. My daughters live in here. It's beautiful, still beautiful, yes. And I bought the Mercedes Benz. First 250 Mercedes Benz I bought them cash.
Wow.
Yes. And I retired from the business in 1996 at age 44.
Woo! Wow,
yes.
Talk about goal setting and achieving your goals.
Yes. So I did, everybody was stunned because I sweep in just 3 years, right? Everybody in the company knew me because this was what flashing all around. Every record, every sales record in the company was broken. So everybody would know my face because every single record at the company, sales record. I remember one year they had to reprogram the computer to process a policy I wrote because nobody ever wrote more than 75,000 a year premium. That policy was $250,000 a year premium at that time.
Wow. I'm going to interrupt you, Mr. Williams. There is a popular book, Good to Great, by Jim Collins. And Jim Collins speaks about setting big, hairy, audacious goals, BHAGs. And it sounds to me that you really set some big, hairy, audacious goals and not just set them, but you achieved them. Beautiful.
My manager came to me one day and said, I did some research in Life of Jamaica. Nobody in the history of the company ever sell more than 75 lives in 1 month, right? And my boss asked me if you think that, he said, no, but that's cheese. So he said that if he gave me some money to say if I pass it, because he was like that, he just like high achievement. And I said yes. So in August 1981, when few people in the company would have liked to sell 100 applications for 1 year, I wrote 181 cases in 1 month, which is still a record in the company. I don't think anybody will break that record.
Wow.
That is still a record in the company.
Thank you.
This was it.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was
Thank
circulated
you.
all around the company.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's still a record in the company.
Awesome.
Yes.
There is a Chinese character that has 2 elements to it: opportunity and crises. It appears to me as we have this conversation about transformational leadership that you have faced many challenges in life, but out of those challenges, you were able to extract the opportunities and maximize on them. Beautiful. This takes us nicely into segment 4, Mr. Williams. My question is, what were your main strategies to achieve success? Recognizing that each individual is unique and responds to stimuli in different ways, what advice would you give to someone who desires to achieve your level of success?
Well, first you have to have a goal plan. Because somebody said if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Yeah? You have to set up. I used to set up in the night. I used to do my own role play. Yes, if I have a person to sell, which I know would be tough, because it is said that engineer was one of the hardest person to sell life insurance. So if I know I have a person like that, I would set up late in the night. I would do my research. And one thing I learned about dealing with people is that, first of all, you have to express commonality with the person. So I would find out, search a person's life and find out what make them tick. And in my conversation, that is the first thing I would start with. So when I go to talk with the person, we were already friends because I would know so much about them. Right? Yes. And I would know what they don't like and you don't bring up what they don't like. Right? First, so I find methods of how to approach a person. And those days you have to pass the secretary before you could get to the boss. So I would study how to deal. So you have to set up yourself for success. It does not happen. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Now we're going to be looking at metrics because you've mentioned in terms of performance how Mr. Williamson challenged the team to achieve high levels of performance. What is your view of coaching and mentorship in 21st century organizations, especially given the demanding nature of executive responsibilities and the focus on using metrics, quantitative and qualitative targets to determine if executives and their teams are performing at the set or desired standard?
I was stunned when I reached Life at Jamaica. It's a company that exactly all that you're saying is that they major in. I realized that even if you had gone to university and get a PhD at Life at Jamaica, you couldn't get a branch manager's position. And it was later on, I knew that it was set up by Dan himself, because he realized that for a person to do the job, they have to come up through the training that they have. And Life at Jamaica was the only insurance company I know that have a full university. I would call it a university because of the diverse training you were given. You were training, I can deal with every subject because I was trained. I did a little medicine because you have to do underwriting, and that's what it's about. Business, law, all of those things. Actually, most of the law, my daughter is a lawyer, and most of the things you know that I know them already. I do most of my things. My company, I incorporate them myself. I do everything because I was trained. We were trained to read balance sheet, everything. You know, it was I call it the University of Life at Jamaica. My friends will know, and my colleagues will know that I refer to it as the University of Life at Jamaica. Because you measure everything you do, everything the managers are doing, you evaluate to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And I mean, all your remunerations were a part of that. Yes.
How did executive coaching and mentorship help you in that
kind
of
I
scenario?
believe in mentorship, and as you know, I got an award from the Governor General, 50th Independence Award for excellence, from mentoring young people to reach their objective. Because I volunteered many years ago at Harvard to a friend of mine called me. Every batch of students, they would ask me to motivate them, to give them some, I share my experience. And that worked well because many of them today I see on the road, they will come and tell me that they remember the talk I gave and inspire them, to think a little bit bigger than what they think.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. This takes us nicely into leadership style. What specific strategies and leadership styles have you employed in managing people since your first leadership role? How effective was each of those strategies?
Well, the strangest thing happened. When in 19, my manager discouraged me from going into management because he thought the history of top sales, insurance salesmen said they were never good managers because top insurance people are selfish people. That's what he said in the business. So he discouraged me. He said with my sales ability, I would be taking a demotion if I go into management. But then he said the wrong thing to me because I'm that type of person. If you tell me that I can't really think, then that is what is going to motivate me because I'm going to prove you wrong. So I decided to go in management. At the top of I was leading agent company, but I decided to go in management. I really took a demotion because I cut my pay, but I wanted to experience the other side of the business. So I went into unit management. I was promoted to unit management. I did that for 4 years and topped the company, leading unit manager. 1 year I stunned them because I get so much over my quota that people couldn't believe it, right? So in 1991, the branch there, Life of Jamaica, was trying hard to build a branch in it. It was one of the most difficult places I know was to form a branch. So I took up the challenge. Tony Williams and Harris me to do it because he knew I could. And in no time at all we had a branch.
Tony Williams?
Yes. Somebody else was managing. But then the branch fell down to the number 14th over the 15th spot of the company was cancelled. So in 1991 I took over the branch, manager. And the first thing I said to the morning when I introduced myself to the agents is that you no longer have any manager and any boss. What you have is a leader, team leader. Call me team leader. So I decided to lead by example. So we decided, I told them that I have some, because I'm a person, I grew up Tony Williams, who never has to do anything and don't give any incentive to do. And I know even in the Bible, David was given, remember the incentive David was given to kill Goliath. I don't think he would have done that well if he wasn't given the incentive to get the man's daughter, you understand? So even in the Bible you have people, David worked for incentive. So I tell them that if we want to be the top branch in the company, that was one easy achievement because the truth is, the out-of-town branches never usually make it because in Kingston you have the more developed areas where more people to sell insurance. In the country areas they don't have that. So it's more difficult in Centre to be the number one branch. It's difficult. But I didn't make that. I said that we would do it. And I tell them how to be your team leader. And I tell them what incentive I will give. And in 2 years' time, we turned the branch around to the number one branch in the company. And has been one of the leading branch, because the lady who succeeded me, she still went on to 1 or 3 years in a row. Yeah. So I believe in mentorship because I lead by example.
Beautiful, and that's what transformational leaders do.
Because a strange thing happened that year. A lot of the whole company, over 400, nearly 400 people sitting in the Pegasus that morning was surprised. Because even though I was a team leader and a manager, I had to coordinate all of the agents' businesses that is settled and to work with them in the field and to help them to close the case. My personal production was in the top 10 in the company.
Wow.
But some people couldn't believe that was possible.
Even while managing a branch was at the bottom.
And beat the other 15, some of the most powerful insurance branches in Jamaica.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I could sit here all day and just listen to how you extracted opportunities out of challenges. Thank you very much. In segment 7, we're really going to be summarizing this interview. This segment seeks to summarize your experiences in life and leadership. What would you say, Mr. Williams, were the high points in your career? And what advice would you like to give to aspiring leaders who desire to become an icon or a role model or a mentor, as you have been in your own right?
I would say that you need determination, right? You need commitment, right? And somebody said commitment is a contract without an exit clause. When you're committed to do something, you can't. The first little things start to happen. That is not a part of your plan. You can't just hop off. You have to commit to do a job, even when it looks impossible. Right? Even when it looks difficult and it can't, people telling you that it can't do. You need to keep focus. Yes, because that is what happened. A lot of people tell me in my times that I couldn't do it because I didn't have the academic, I didn't go to university, and they feel that certain things that is rubbish because some of the best people I've come across, right, is people who didn't get to a certain level of education. Because sometimes we can get blinded by, I have this, I have a degree, I have this, right? And we get blinded and we forget that everything you have to be a input. I usually tell people that what will happen with education is a passport to get to the job, but you can't make you keep the job. It's performance that make you keep the job. So I encourage people to go, and that's why I set up a foundation to make sure kids are educated. But you need education, but you need the determination to succeed. In a world like this, where opportunities are hard to come by, it's only the fittest will survive. And somebody said that life is like tennis. If you don't serve well, you don't win.
That's right.
Yes, it's the person who can serve the ball the best will win the tennis match. Right? You could have the strength like Mrs. Williams to hit the ball, but if you don't serve it well, you're not going to win.
Beautiful. We are wrapping up this interview with Mr. Steely, Leopold Steely Williams, a man who failed the common entrance exam because of challenges faced with the institution. The school was burnt down and they had to be moving from place to place. Those challenges hindered his ability to complete his education, to pass the common entrance exam. He went on to a non-traditional high school, we would call them now. He faced many challenges on the job. He faced many challenges in life. He faced many challenges even as he sought to enter the insurance industry that has been his bedrock. Today we are looking at a successful serial entrepreneur, and at this time I want Mr. Williams, not in a boastful way, but just to challenge young persons who may be faced with the same issues that we have discussed today, to tell us a little bit about the businesses that he now runs.
Well, in 5 years after, the truth is, all my life I wanted to be a businessman.
Yes.
Yes, because I always from early age realized that when you work for somebody, I had a job with the parish council as a field assistant, and I realized when I got my pay department, I have to ask my mother for subsidy to live for the next 2 weeks because that money. So I realized that when you work for a person, they put up and say how much you're worth, and the truth is you're part of the balance sheet. And the company said they're not paying no more than 10% or 15% of the gross income for salary. You're a victim of that. So even if you're performing 5 times above average, you're not going to get what you're worth. So it's only in business you're really going to get what you're worth. Because when you might have struggles, but when the profit comes, you get everything. Right? So I set out. So after 5 years in the business, I decided that I wanted to get into business. I observed that there was not enough rent-a-car companies. The tourist business was booming, but people couldn't get in cars to rent. So I decided that well, the truth is I always wanted to earn some foreign exchange because in 1979, on my first trip to the $1 Million Round Table in New York, I left Jamaica with $50 because that time you couldn't take no more than, you have to take a passport to the bank to buy $50. And being a good Christian, I didn't want to hide off any money, so I left in faith with $50 to New York. And it was one struggle to survive. And I said, I'm going to start to earn some foreign exchange for this country. That was my plan. So I set out to start a rent-a-car company. Didn't have the capital because the capital was plenty to start a company. I went into the bank to see the manager. He said that I need a business plan. When he recommended me to his accountant who knew very well. And when I checked the cost, the man said it was $1,800, which was a whole heap of money. So I went to his assistant who I knew from school days and asked him if he had any whole one that somebody did that I could borrow to. And I went home, set up the whole night until 3 o'clock and did my own business plan and took it to the manager. He was so impressed that he lent me $6,000 without any security to start the company. I incorporated the company with my school friend, did it for me for free, and that was Steely Motors company. The company went on to a phenomenal success, right? We purchased one property and it grew to the hotel here. It's beautiful property. Yes, it grew to that. Yes, this is a success story because it earned so much money that I was able to buy this place cash.
Wonderful,
yes.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be having a conversation now with Mr. Williams about this book. The generosity of this man is so great that he has decided to contribute all proceeds from this book to the Steely Williams Foundation to help disadvantaged children complete their education. You have heard his own story about the challenges he faced with his educational exploits in the early years of his life, and so he has made it a mission really to contribute to the lives of persons who may be less fortunate, who may be facing similar challenges. So Mr. Williams, tell us a little bit about your foundation and the book.
Well, I decided, having gone to speak at many conferences and seminars and mentorship programs, people usually say that, what happened to the book? Right? I really didn't have the time to sit down. I actually was at Tony Williams' book signing in Kingston. And the truth is, in his book, he wrote a chapter on me. And it so happened that his launching of the book, somebody read that chapter from the book. And when the people heard what happened, the lady who was the author of his book came to me and said, but you should be having the book. So she said that she asked me if I don't want to do a book. And I said, I'm thinking of it because people have been saying it. So she decided to come and see me the following week. She asked me if I want her to do the book, to write the book. I said, no, I want to write it because it's in my head. So in about 2 months' time, I wrote the book and gave it to her. She was stunned because I didn't have none of it put on it. So the book was published. And we had a launch, and I was privileged to sold the first print in no time. It was 500 books, right? And then I printed another 1,000 after. And all the proceeds that I so far have gone to give bursaries and so on to students. Some of them have gone on to do extremely well. Right? Some of them have gone on to college and some are overseas. All of them are doing well because I just don't give it to people who I think will play around. I give it to people on a certain basis. Right? Because I don't believe in supporting people to fail.
That's right.
Yes.
This morning you shared with me, Mr. Williams, a story of a young man who went on to study neurosurgery, someone who you sponsored. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, well, I didn't give him a lot of money, but I planted a seed. Yes. He came here, he was one of the persons who read from the book at the launch. And the first amount of money I sold from the book, I decided to give it to him as a token. Well, after he went on to do extremely well, having get about 6 A levels or CSEC, right? And he went on. I took him down to Montego Bay to meet. He said he wanted to do neurosurgery. I took him down to Montego Bay to meet on the Jamaica staff neurosurgeon, young man, right? He's at the university now. And I took him to Montego Bay. And the gentleman was so, when he heard about the fellow, after I told him the story, he was so interested that he came out and all the people waiting on him in his office, he came out and spoke to him and took a picture, it came in the newspaper, right? I think. Well, he said that he gave me his card and said when he's finished, he can call him if he wants to come to the job right to do it. So he got his result, got him automatic, admittance to the university. But it gets better than that. He got a 97% scholarship from Western University in the States to do medicine, surgery. And he's doing extremely well now because I speak to him very often. Yes.
Excellent. Congratulations, Mr. Williams. And congratulations to those students who have gone on to do well. If you need copies of Mr. Williams' book, you can make contact with me and I'll be delighted to put you on to Mr. Williams. When I started to read this book, I really could not put it down. It is gripping, it is captivating. It really inspires you not just to achieve success, but also to pay it forward, to influence the lives of others. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Turning challenges into opportunities. Mr. Williams, thank you so much for granting us this interview today.
Thank you very much.
We thank you for the service you have given to your clients. We thank you for the lives that you have touched through your foundation, the Steely Williams Foundation.
Chamber of Commerce.
We thank you for your service to the St. Anne Chamber of Commerce. We know that your life could have been different, but your fixity of purpose and your determination to win has caused you today to become one of the icons that we have decided to interview for this series on transformational leadership. God bless you.
Thank you.
God bless your family. God bless Jamaica. Thank you, Mr. Williams.